The Goldie Gossip Podcast. Step to the gold. Step to the throne.
Welcome. Welcome, kings and queens, to another edition of the Goldie Gossip Podcast. Let's get started with the show. All right, folks. I haven't done a podcast in a while because I've been running out of content. I've told you guys so many true Hollywood stories and true Detroit Motown stories. I've been running out of stories. But the other night, me and Nancy was kicking it, and we saw a documentary on the 1967 Detroit riots. And that sparked a whole new avenue for me. So, in lieu of that, I'm going to show you some brief footage, actual footage of the 1967 Detroit riots. And then after that, I'm going to give you guys my perspective on the riots. I was there. Check out the clip.
The Detroit riots. In 1967, a riot broke out during a long, hot summer night in the Virginia Park neighborhood of Detroit, Michigan. Lasting more than 2 days, it was one of the most destructive riots in American history. We're going to take a look at what set the riots off, the riots themselves, and the consequences. In the late 1960s, the civil rights movement in the United States was growing stronger, but racial inequality was still a big problem. Deindustrialization of the cities and the desegregation of schools was causing a reshuffling of neighborhoods. As part of integration efforts, people of color moved into urban areas that were once predominantly white. But in response, many white people fled to the suburbs, some scared of integration, and some having lost their factory jobs. This phenomenon is called white flight and contributed to segregation. With many whites having fled urban centers, business owners and politicians neglected these new, mostly black neighborhoods, leading to overcrowding and deterioration. While Detroit spent money on developing and racially integrating the inner city, black residents of neighborhoods like Virginia Park were still dealing with housing and employment discrimination, poor access to medical services, an underfunded public education system, and racism from law enforcement. On July 23, 1967, at 3:15 a.m., the Vice Squad of the Detroit Police Department conducted a raid on an unlicensed bar on 12th Street in Virginia Park. Although it was late, the street was full of people trying to keep cool because of a heat wave. While the police were making arrests, a brick flew through a police car window, prompting the riots, looting, and fires that would rage for days. On July 25th, Governor George Romney called in the Michigan National Guard, and the riots finally ended on July 27th. But the damage and human loss was unprecedented. 43 people died. Over 1,000 were injured. Over 7,200 were arrested. More than 2,000 buildings and structures were damaged, and hundreds of families were left homeless. The riots accelerated the exodus of white people from the city, making segregation even worse. But it also drew attention to the problem. President Lyndon B. Johnson appointed a commission to figure out why the riots happened. The report found that white racism, discrimination, and poverty were to blame for the riots. It warned, quote, "Our nation is moving toward two societies, one black and one white, separate and unequal." 2 years later, the Stonewall riots would occur at the Stonewall Inn in New York City, which was targeted in a raid very similar to the bar on 12th Street. Like in Detroit, the spontaneous violence at the Stonewall Inn also resulted from discrimination, but this time against the LGBT community. The Stonewall was a popular safe haven for New York's gay community. Detroit and Stonewall would be the most destructive riots in U.S. history until the 1992 Los Angeles riots, which reflected similar issues of inner-city racial segregation and discrimination. The Detroit riots remind us that even a century after the Civil War ended, the violent legacy of racism and discrimination was still present in American culture, a legacy that echoes through modern society, where protesters and activists still fight for racial equality across the country.
All right, peeps. So here's my perspective on the 1967 Detroit riots. So let me take you back. Let me take you way back. So it's 1967. And I'm 13 years old. I'm living one block down from the original Motown, Hitsville, USA. I'm living at 7602 Woodrow Wilson and Bethune. And when the riots broke out, on the documentary you just saw, they claim that it started when they threw a brick through the cop's window. But from my perspective, it started from the Algiers Motel. Now, the Algiers Motel was on Virginia Park and Woodward Avenue. It was a seedy motel, lots of hookers, a lot of drug deals going down, and the police knew that a lot of people there were shady, and they broke into a room thinking that they were selling drugs, and they beat them and they shot them, only to find out that they had the wrong room, and the people in the room that they had assaulted were innocent. So the people went crazy. They started turning over the cop cars. That's what I remember, and I was there. And so as it broke out, you know, brothers gonna take advantage when they know it's a riot. They started looting everywhere. I saw a kid run into a bank, coming out the bank with a tray of money, and people coming in and just swarming over him and taking the money. It was pandemonium. Now, the reason why I know the riots got out of hand was because at the time, our mayor was Coleman Young. And the police wanted a raise. They were demanding a raise. And Coleman Young denied them the raise. So the first 3 days of the riot, the police wouldn't participate. And when the brothers saw that, they went crazy. They said, oh, the police ain't doing nothing. That's what made it escalate out of control. So then the police finally won over the city, and the city agreed to give them the raise. But by then, Governor Romney had already called in the National Guard. And the National Guard came in. They issued a curfew for the whole city, 6 o'clock. Anybody on the street after 6 o'clock is going to be shot. They cut off the water. There was no water. We had electricity, but all the lights, all of the street lights up and down the streets were out. They cut them out at night. And they said that you could not peek out your windows. If you peeked out your windows, they would think that you were a sniper, and they had the authority to shoot you. Now, my mama was scared as hell. We didn't participate in the riot. I wasn't stealing nothing, but I could see what was going on. I had a friend across the street by the name of Roy McKibbins. They had a big-ass house right on the corner across the street from us. It even set on fire one time, but anyway, another story. They had so much shit in their house till a tank rolled up on their lawn and took the batter ram and knocked their front door down and arrested all of them for stolen goods. But anyways, since the police was back on the job and the National Guard was there, at nighttime, all you heard was gunfire. It was like a war zone. All you heard was gunfire. We could hear people running across our porch. We had a front porch, and you could hear people running across the front porch and ducking down, and we could hear shots fired. We had to lay on the floor and sleep because we was afraid the gunfire might, come through the room and hit us. So anyway, after the third day, after the sixth day, almost the seventh day, things started to calm down, and it was over 7,200 people arrested. And there were, I don't know how many hundreds of people killed, and even more than that, wounded. And it left all of the streets burned down. And even until this day, when you go to Detroit, you see so many empty lots. Even the place that I lived in, 7602 Woodrow Wilson, it's an empty lot, nothing but grass there. And that's my experience with the 76 Detroit riots. We're going to close this out with a video. I hope you enjoyed the show. Another true Detroit story. Goldie Himalaya, y'all.
No police on the high road, wildin' out. All my people showing love, we're wildin' out, going wild, wildin' out. Wildin' out, Popping bottles up in the club, we're wildin' out. No clothes on, I want to wildin' out. All my people showing them love, we're wildin' out, going wildin' out. We're wildin' out. Poppin' bottles up in the club. We're wildin' out. No clothes on the high road. We're wildin' out. All my people showing us love. We're wildin' out, going wildin' out. Poppin' bottles up in the club. We're wildin' out. No clothes on the high road. We're wildin' out. All my people showing me love, wildin' out, going wildin' out. Popping bottles up in the club, we're wildin' out. No clothes on the high road, wildin' out. All my people showing me love, wildin' out, going wildin' out. Popping bottles up in the club, we're wildin' out. No clothes on the high road, wildin' out. All my people showing me love, we're wildin' out, going wildin' out.